So maybe you've been dating somebody for a while and you find yourself holding out hope about whether or not they're going to open up. And you wonder, is this going to be something that builds momentum, or are we just going to be stuck in this limbo kind of gray area forever where we spend time together, we hang out, but we never have conversations about where this is going or what the future holds? And maybe you're just not seeing the progress you'd like to see in this relationship. Well, there tends to be one specific question that I'll tell you I would ask myself when I was seeing couples in my own practice that really determines whether or not somebody is going to open up over time, especially if they are an avoidant. And the recipe to being able to really get a clear answer from this question is not just to ask the question, but to properly vet what follow-up is done. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through one particular question, but also a follow-up process that will really help you to determine whether or not somebody is going to open up over time, if they are going to end up creating progress in the relationship. And my hope is that if you're listening to this here today, you are going to be able to ask this question yourself, but know exactly what to do after you ask it and for what extended period of time so that you can truly see whether or not there will be progress with an avoidant in your life, and also make sure that you are not getting stuck in a cycle of self-abandonment and investing in somebody who may not at this time be ready or willing to do the work. So I want to share with you first a little bit of a story here. And this is about when I was in practice. So the first year that I would work with people, I was working primarily with individuals. And over time, as time went on, I started to work more with couples as well, and sort of a combination of the two. And as I really dove in later on into my practice, into the attachment style work and relationship oriented work, I realized there really wasn't a big correlation between whether or not people healed and what their attachment style was. That wasn't the key indicator that I was going to look for. In other words, it wasn't like, oh, because this person's an anxious attachment style or a dismissive avoidant or a fearful avoidant, that there was more or less of a chance that somebody was going to heal. And I was tracking this, by the way, quite closely because I would see 40 or so clients a week for a very long period of time. And I was really getting clear on the sort of patterns and themes that were emerging. And over time, the realization that I came to when I would first start working with a new couple, for example, and they would come in on day one to my office and have a conversation, the number one thing that I was looking for was not what their attachment style was not how much trauma they had in their past, in their background, was not about anything related to that. It was about, are both people willing to do the work? Because if both people were willing to show up and actually, have the hard conversations, apply the tools that I was giving that really targeted their painful attachment patterns at a subconscious level, right? So that we could rewire and become securely attached. If people were willing to do the work, the relationship would completely transform. But if one person was there as an ultimatum, was kind of in, halfway out, and really wasn't willing to try to communicate differently or apply the tools or make an effort to try to mend the relationship, if they were just there going through the motions, that is when there's going to be tremendous amounts of challenge. So I'll tell you how to ask this question, but the most importantly, what follows. Okay. So let's say you're sitting and you're dating somebody, and maybe you've been dating them for 5 years and you're trying to see real progress into something much more serious, maybe even dating them for 6 months, and you're just trying to see some sort of commitment or see if there's momentum that can be picked up in the relationship dynamic. Well, one of the first things, if you're not feeling good about where the relationship currently is you have to determine, is this person going to be willing to work on progress with me? And that actually requires you to be able to have a conversation about what you're looking for in a relationship. And generally this goes like you saying to somebody, hey, I'm enjoying the connection with you. I really do want to see where this goes, but it's also important that I value and care for my own time. And I need to see progress in this relationship. And I'm curious to hear, are you somebody who's in a position where you're willing to progress things and work on some things in this relationship? And that looks like, and maybe you say A and B, one or two things, communicating our needs better, or being more open and more vulnerable in this relationship, sharing more deeply, making plans for the future, whatever it is. That's where you get to say what you feel like is not progressing. Okay. Now, that's not the end of this conversation. It's only the tip of the iceberg here. After you have that conversation, you are going to do a couple of things. Number one, if somebody says, no, I'm not willing to make any effort, I'm not willing to progress, you have to take them at face value. Like if somebody's saying, I'm not willing to do any work, they're probably not going to change their mind if they couldn't even get through a conversation. They're probably not going to have continued conversations about needs or progress or things like that. That is going to be what you're looking for from a relationship. Now, I know a lot of you are, watching this video going, well, then I'm scared to ask that question. I don't want to push the person away. But I promise you, if you can't have conversations like this, all that is happening is you are on a one-track path to the relationship not working out anyways, and you're just extending the time frame from which it's clearly not going to work out because the person's not willing to try to progress things or put in the effort. It's almost like you're extending the suffering. You're just going to stay in that gray area for longer until eventually things hit this critical threshold. And maybe it's 6 months later, maybe it's a year later, but then things are inevitably not going to go anywhere anyways. So you have to be honest with yourself. Like, it may be scary and vulnerable to have that conversation, but isn't it better to know and not be wasting my time on somebody who may not be in a place where they're willing or able to invest? Okay, so that's the first part. There's a lot more to this. There's 3 other things I want to go through. Let's say instead that somebody says, yeah, I am open, I am willing to do that. Does that mean that the conversation is now over? And as I really dove in later on into my practice, into the attachment style work and relationship oriented work, I realized opened a gateway into growth. That it's a great sign. There's a good green flag there. But now what we have to do is we have to set a deadline for how long we are going to invest in this person. And we need to get clear about what our standards are for things that we want to see that would change. Okay. So for example, if you see that this person isn't vulnerable and they're not willing to communicate about conflict with you and hash things out, and you say, like, that's really important to me, and the person says, okay, I'm willing to work on that. We can't just say, okay, we're going to now wait for it to happen forever. We need to set a clear timeline. So this could look like you saying, you know what, I'm going to work with this person for 3 months on this. And I'm going to see if the needle moves in this 3-month period because this is really important to me. And during this 3 months, it doesn't matter how much the person says they want to work on something. You have to be able to invest and vet their actions and not their words. Okay. So their words and the confirmation that they're willing to do this is great. It's opening the gateway, it's progress. But what matters after is, what are those person's actions telling you? What are they showing you? Do they actually, even if they're not perfect at it, do they try to have a conversation around conflict? Do they try to say, okay, I see your perspective. I see why that hurt you. Here's mine. Are they open to having that conversation differently? Or are they open to, if you needed more validation or more effort, do you see those actions following what the conversation was? Or did you just hear the words once and nothing else ever changed? So you need to then set a timeline, and then you need to vet. Now, I want to say one thing to you. If you try to have this conversation, I still have one other really important piece to share with you, but if you try to have this conversation and you're only having the conversation without knowing your needs and not really knowing what your standards are, what you're truly looking for in the relationship, you're also not going to be successful at this. And if you want to go deeper in knowing your standards and your needs and your non-negotiables, which, to be honest, you must know in order to intentionally date, and you must know if you're in a position where you're not sure if you're in the right relationship right now, or you're not sure what kind of progress you're looking for, you need to know these answers to these questions, because without understanding, you're just moving through everything on autopilot. So I will share with you, there's a course you can check out fully for free for a limited time using the link down below. And it's all about how to know your needs and standards and non-negotiables in dating, and then how to communicate them in a healthy way where the person's not going to feel that it's abrasive or pressuring or like an ultimatum. It's an open dialogue and conversation. It's easy. So that is fully for free just for a limited time down below. But then the last piece here is that if you do know these things, right, and you set the timeline, you need to know that if the person's making an effort, it is sustained effort over time that matters. Why is this? Because if somebody goes from not meeting your needs and then you start communicating your needs, and the way I like to think of a relationship between people with different attachment styles is, it's almost like, you sit down and you want to play a game with somebody. You want to play a board game, and you sit down and you're so excited and you're playing the board game, and all of a sudden there's all of this chaos. You're not agreeing on anything or the way the rules are supposed to work. And then you come to find out, oh my gosh, we're sitting down to play a board game and you have the rules for Monopoly and they have the rules for Scrabble. Well, of course, there's going to be all this unnecessary friction and confusion in the board game because you have different rules for how the game is supposed to work. And what our attachment style really is it's our subconscious set of rules. These rules that we've learned about love and connection and what it should look like and what we should need and how we should rely on each other. And so if you haven't been in a position where you can communicate about your needs, communicate about your expectations, then you're just going to get caught playing the board game with different rules and having no idea why things are so hard. So, what we need to see is that when you share, okay, I'm looking for progress, you share what it is that progress means to you, what needs you specifically have. And you ask that question, and then you set the timeline, and then you watch, is there sustained effort over time? Am I actually seeing through their actions, not their words, that they are progressing? It doesn't mean the person has to be perfect. It doesn't mean that because you communicated a need once, they have to get it right 10 out of 10 times. But if you're seeing you communicated a need and they got it right 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, they're making that effort that's sustained over time, actually fires and wires new neural pathways in a person's brain as they try to take these new actions, which turn them into habits. They make them become subconscious over time. The more we fire and wire things because we rinse and repeat them and we practice them, and eventually that becomes your new normal. That becomes your set point. Eventually, these rules that you had that were different, you communicated, you found a healthy compromise in the middle, you practiced doing things in this new way. It became your new normal together. And you know what that does? That is the very thing that takes you out of the power struggle stage of relationships. So if you didn't know, we have different stages. We have the dating stage, the honeymoon stage, and then we have the power struggle. And it's statistically where most relationships end. And the secret ingredient to moving out of that stage and having a thriving relationship and building beyond that is being able to truly know what your needs are, what the other person's needs are, and find the way to communicate through those things. Practice that sustained effort over time. Now, that's your new normal, and you know how to relate to each other with your new set of rules you've developed together. And in case you missed it, you can now reserve your spot and get more than a 50% early bird discount for our live relationship coach certification program. This 12-week program gives you the opportunity to build a new career, create your own thriving coaching practice, help your community, and secure your financial future full of abundance with a growing waitlist of clients. And the best part is that you get to spend a whole bunch of time with me as I teach you exclusive subconscious reprogramming tools and help you learn how to change somebody's attachment style from insecurely attached to securely attached so that you can truly help create transformation in people's lives and have a wait list of people waiting to work with you. We also have an entire business week about how to build funnels, systems, and to really build a thriving and busy practice. You can sign up using the link down below the video, and I can't wait to see you there. So those are the major things that you need to see in terms of, okay, is somebody actually willing to do the work? Because if this person's going to become emotionally available in time or not, it's going to depend on your communication directly, you knowing your needs, and then you being able to vet for their actions and behaviors, not for if they had the conversation and just said yes in the moment with their words. So I hope that makes sense. If you want to go deeper into the topic, there's that free course for you down below. That's really easy to get through really fast, will really give you a lot of insight. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And I can't wait to see you in future videos. Thank you for watching.